take us back to the beginning, Craig. What was your childhood like, and how did those early years shape your path towards Taekwondo?
Mm, yeah, yeah. Well, early years, I grew up in southeast London, in Peckham, England. Went to a school called Oliver Goldsmith. That was my first school. And then high school was Warwick Park. It's now, I think it's now called Harris Academy. Um, as a young kid, I was always interested in martial arts, Bruce Lee movies. I used to watch a lot of that. Used to be running around the house a lot, just kicking things. And when my mom actually got a leaflet for like Taekwondo, she was like happy because hopefully I wouldn't break things around the house anymore, you know. So that was cool. But yeah, leaflet. One day in school, just there was a leaflet went around during the end, like the last class of the day. Brought it home. My mom was like, "Okay, sure, you can try it." That's how Taekwondo started. It was just right around the corner from my house. So it was really close. You could just walk there, even closer to my school. So that's how that started with Taekwondo. Uh, where I grew up was a pretty rough area for Southeast London. Peckham. It's got a bit of a reputation for being a little bit rough. But saying that, a lot of famous star celebrities have come from Peckham. People like Rio Ferdinand, the great football player. You got someone like Ashley Walters is an actor. Goes by Asher D. He's got his grandma's in Peckham. You got people like trying to think who else. But there's a lot of people that actually grew up there, went to do great things. So yeah, growing up in Southeast London, it was it was a good experience in regards to shaping you to be able to take on whatever challenges you'd face when you got older. That's what I felt like with my upbringing. I think what else?
You can make it more like conversational because I can cut these, right?
Yeah.
And so, um, when did you start? Like, when did you get the leaflet for the Taekwondo?
Yeah. So I got the leaflet. I believe it was in January, and I was 10 years old. I think I was going to be 11 the next month. So my birthday's in February. So I got it. That's when the leaflet came through. Um, and then I had my free trial class. I loved it. Was really into it. Um, and so I was really committed to that. But I also was really committed to playing football as well. So there was always especially up until in my late teens, there was always there was school, there was Taekwondo, and there was football. And so when it came to football, it was more of a team event. I feel like a lot of the football environments they weren't the most positive. I felt like with Taekwondo, it was more individual. You more rely on yourself. You're responsible. You're solely responsible for your own performance. And I felt that I liked that. I also liked the fact that in the winter, well, I didn't like the fact that in the winter, football was outside. It was cold, it was muddy, it was rainy, it was early, whereas Taekwondo was like in the evenings, it was inside, it was heated, so it definitely leaned more to me in that space.
Your journey in Taekwondo has been remarkable. What were some of the key milestones and challenges you faced along the way to becoming a master and to become where you are and to peak your kind of performance at the highest level?
Mm. I'd say milestones wise, there's a couple of people and a couple of events that really made the difference. I'd say obviously my first instructors, Deroy Hansen, Rajiv Bukar, now goes by Zufi Raj. Those are my first instructors that Yeah, and I think it's important to give credit to first instructors. I think that sometimes people forget that, but they're the ones that like really help you to fall in love with what you're doing. So they might not be the ones that have all the experience, have all the skills. They might not be the ones that take you to the finish line, but they're the ones that got you on the start line. And I think they don't always get the most they don't always get the most credit. Because it's like your parents. If your parents didn't give birth to you, you ain't nothing. So we forget that sometimes as well. The start is just as important as well. So they were important in regards to just showing me a part of the martial arts that I could really be passionate about. Also, I had another coach called Michael Giorgio, who was that real strong supporting factor. He's also had got a lot of accolades in regards to coaching, like coaching the national team at the Commonwealth Games. He actually came with me later in my career to coach me to the World Championships in 2017 in Korea and Muju. Another big role model or impact was Master Richard Allen. So he came in at a very important time. I just won my first nationals, and he came in and kind of took me under his wing. So I was training with him a lot. He was like 10 times British champion, had Olympic experience, won medals all over the world, very well known, had so many stories to share that had so much like learning and secondary meanings in it. I feel like I say to my athletes a lot of the time, I say, a lot of the learning, a lot of the growth that I had, a lot of it was in the conversations. It wasn't just in the training, the physical training. Mentoring is a big part of becoming a world-class athlete, and that's a big part of that what we do, what I do in my coaching. A big part of it is the mentoring part, the part that it's not just physical, that kind of completes that. The mental side, the coaching side, the strategic side, the mentality side, those aspects are really, really important, and they make the difference. A lot of people that everyone can do drills. You can find drills on YouTube, and anyone can do drills, understand how the drill is meant to be practiced, but not many people are going to know why you're doing it, and the application of it and using it in the right way. And it's funny how you find that some of the most advanced, the most successful athletes don't always have the most exquisite or comprehensive training programs or exercises. They keep it really simple, but they're just so effective with doing simple things. So that's that.
How do you feel like those coaches kind of influenced you, or how did they help you grow and become a better athlete?
Yeah, I feel like they all brought different components, and I think that's what really helps, is that they all had different strengths, and I was able to take from many of them. Like with my coach Michael Giorgio, he knew how to take care of a team. Like he would take teams of kids, teenagers, to like Germany, to like Holland, to all these different places, and he would take care of them. He knew how to facilitate that. He knew how to support them. He knew how to be there to encourage them and have their back and lift them up when they felt low, when they had like a rough performance, or they were going for a rough patch. I feel like Master Richard Allen was someone that taught me how to express myself. He taught, I took a lot of my, I emulated him a lot with things like footwork and movement. I had my own movement already, but I kind of took what I learned from him and tried to take that to the next level. So when it comes to footwork, when it came to timing, when it came to like being able to use the punch, he was really, really good at that. And so that was a really big part of knowing what it meant to express yourself through sport, through martial arts. The key up, the shout. How do you use a shout to gain control of your breath? So therefore you can change the tempo. That's something that not a lot of people understand, is that when you get really good at key upping and you connect your key up with your technique, you kind of develop the ability to manipulate your breathing through your own key up. And that's something that he was the start of me learning that. I also, another coach that I would say that I learned a lot from was my first national coach, which was Master John Wright Diaz. So he was a Spanish coach, and he taught me. He was like a technician. You know, he's the one that would find like very, very creative ways to solve situations. Like when it came to tactical or technical, strategic things, when it comes to like when you're competing with somebody, you know, he would come up with like the really clever, intuitive, innovative ways to not only train, but to apply techniques. And so I kind of took his way of thinking when it comes to, you know, the way I coach as well, the way I try and find creative ways to, you know, to solve problems and to help athletes improve. Another important coach to me was, I would say, Nelson Miller is a Dutch Cuban coach. So originally from Cuba, immigrated to Holland. He's actually now the national team coach of Great Britain. So I worked with him then. And so he taught me a lot of the strength and conditioning side, and how to structure training, periodization. Obviously, I had my own degree in sports science, so I learned that in a more general way. But he taught me through his training how to do periodization when it comes to Taekwondo. You know, how to build training sessions, how to build programs, how to have a strength and conditioning program that kind of can blend well with your and facilitates in your Taekwondo training. Another coach, I think one of the last coaches that I think that was really influential. I'm sure I'm missing someone, but I mean, another one that I feel like towards the end of my time at Great Britain, Team GB, I met a coach, his name's Master Chris Sawyer. And he was like the coach of some of my coaches. And so he had so much experience. It was great blending, working with him, because it came to a point where I felt like I'd learned as much as I could from where I was and the coaches I had already, you know, to a point where me and my current coaches were more just like a team with me. Where with him, it was like I was learning again. It was like another level of philosophy and thinking, and when it came to Taekwondo, and not just Taekwondo, but in life in general. And he actually helped me to start my first Taekwondo school. Like he actually walked me through it, gave me the encouragement, and you know, taught me the foundations of what it means to start a school. So he was very influential, and it's funny because with his experience, it came at the right time, because it was a time when I was ready to start my own school. I was ready to start coaching and like understanding how do you transition your experience as a player into coaching, because not all players make good coaches. I mean, I'd like to say thank you definitely to Master Delroy Hansen and Master Rajiv Bakar, aka Zufi Raj, for really, you know, just introducing me to Taekwondo. I mean, if I didn't meet them, if that fly didn't come to my school, if I didn't show up there and they weren't the first people I saw, I don't know if I would have even fell in love with Taekwondo. So I'm really grateful to them and just their technical prowess. When it came to traditional Taekwondo, their attention to detail, their focus on detail. I learnt my forms with them. They're the ones that taught me my forms. And my forms are still good today. You know, even way before I started sport Taekwondo sparring and going into that way, they gave me a fantastic foundation. So I'm really grateful to them. Grateful to Michael Giorgio for his support through the years, always being there. You know, he's just been like a backbone, you know, he saved a lot of kids. Like, you know, in the midst of Taekwondo, he doesn't do Taekwondo for money. It's all about, you know, it's about passion, it's about pride, it's about working with kids, you know, and he's lost one or two kids that were, you know, just through gang violence, you know, like just a couple of years ago, actually, a kid that we know that he was coaching passed away, you know, and that's what happens, you know, when you grow up in a place like Peckham, you know. But, you know, really grateful to him for what he does, you know. Grateful to Master Richard Allen, for just the support, the encouragement, the motivation, the mentorship, like a lot of mentorship he gave me over the years. We used to just hang out. Like I just used to spend like the whole Saturday with him. We'd go train in Brixton. You know, we have Nando's. I go home, jump in the shower, chill with my mom, my sister, and then I'd just drive up to Croydon, and then we'll just hang out, or even just talking about Taekwondo, talking about stuff, you know. And that really helped me a lot. That taught me a lot. Like that mentorship really elevated me, taught me how to think, you know. And you know, I learned from a lot of these anecdotal stories about other athletes. And it taught me a lot about, okay, well, these were good things, these were not so good things. So I'm really grateful for all the learning I got from Master Richard Allen. I'm grateful to John Wright Diaz for just, you know, opening my mind to being really creative, technical. Really grateful for his experience, you know, really helping me to grow, helping me to qualify for the Olympics. Him and Master Richard Allen, they were there when I qualified. So I'm really grateful to them. Grateful to Nelson Miller as well, you know, just for his help while I was at Team GB. I feel like I learned a lot of how not to do things there as well, which I'm also grateful for. Grateful to Chris Sawyer. I mean, we were together for a short time, maybe even I'm not sure if it was a year, maybe 18 months. But in that small space of time, I learned a lot. I learned a lot in regards to how to think, you know, how to really, from a broad perspective, you know, how to really plan a full, you know, how to really think about an athlete's development and performance in a very comprehensive way, and rooting from a philosophical way as well. Yeah, so I'm really grateful to all the coaches that have really, you know, really like put their effort and their support into me. And actually, I want to say I'm grateful to Gary Hall as well. Not from a coaching perspective, but just from just the faith he put in me and the support he put in me, because I was part of the Great Britain team for about, from like 2003 to I won the nationals in 2001, but I was sponsored and supported by the Olympic team from like 2000 for 10 years, from 2003 to 2013, you know, and that support was there and that investment was there. And I got a lot of my experience through that investment, through traveling, competing. Every 2 weeks we were somewhere in Spain, in China, in Korea, you know, and so I learned a lot. And I bring a lot of that along with my sports psychology, education and research. I bring a lot of that into when I'm working with like mental performance. I bring a lot of that experience I got from just being in there day in, day out, different countries, different teams, going against different people, different styles, different, you know, I really had the ability to merge that with my sports performance study. And that's what really helps me. It really guides me and helps me to work with athletes today. So really grateful for that as well.
With all of the help and the coaching, can you tell us about some of the accolades and your achievements? So like, you know, you competed in nationals how many times? And I think a lot of it is on the bio.
Yeah.
But can you just like go through all of that?
Yeah. So nationals for Great Britain, I must have won it at least 10 times. So the first time I won it was 2001. I won it in 2002, 2003, 2004, 2005, 2006, 2007, there was two. 2007 was one that I didn't win, but 2009, I believe I did. And 2010, and I think 2011 I won, but I didn't actually represent the team, because that's at the point when I was actually making a transition to compete for Jamaica. So I won the nationals a good 10 times for the Great Britain team. So it gets to a point where you win it so many times that if you're not careful, you can develop more of a fear of losing than a desire to win. Because now people are looking for kinks in your armor. They're looking for you to lose. Instead of saying, "Oh, you had a great match," they're like, "Oh, that person got that point on him," or that, you know, "Oh, he only won by this amount of points." So the people start to change their narrative of your performances because they're kind of used to you winning, you know. But apart from that, I also went to European Championships in 2004, 2005, 2006. 2008 and 2010. So I went to 5 Europeans, I believe. I got 2 bronze medals in those events, one in 2005, one in 2006. I've won many opens around the world. I've won the German Open, I think at least once. I've won the Polish Open. I've won the Danish Open. I've won the Korean Open, which I won in 2005. I've got bronze in the Mexican Open. I've got bronze in Dutch. I've got silver twice in Belgium Open. So I won a lot of medals in the Opens on the European circuit. I got a bronze in the Costa Rica Open. That was later on in my career. Above that, I've been to 8 World Championships. I went to 2001, 2003, 2005, 2007, 2009. And I went to 2013, and 2015, and 2017. So I went to 8 World Championships. So that was that's over the span of 16 years. Wow, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, so so it's been a lot of time on the highest level, competing. I think the closest I got was in 2009. I just missed out in the quarterfinals to that year's. He was later to become Olympic champion, Carlo Morfetta. So it was really, really close. And he went on to win that. So also IOC level. So I got a silver medal in the Central American and Caribbean Games. I went to the Olympic Games in 2004, which I qualified for in 2004 as well. So those are the events I've been to. I've also been to the World Cup as well, which is like a team event. I went to that in 2010 as well. So it's a lot of competitions. Those are just the high levels. There's a lot of opens I've been to as well, which I've not listed because that's an exhaustive list. But also a lot of training camps, and I think that's where I learned a lot, because when it comes to competitions, if you lose first match, sparring wise, your competition is over. But when you go to camps, you get many opportunities to spar and grow. And I've been to, when it comes to Korea, I've been to Korea about 8 times for training camps, all at 2 weeks at a time, intense camps where you're sparring, going to places like Hanguk-jedae, which is like Korean National Sports University, going to Yongin University, Kemyong University, I went to, I'm trying to think where else. Pungsang High School, which was a great experience as well. And as well as going to Mexico for training camps, Olympic training camps. So a lot of those as well are the ones where I got a lot of learning. Where I know it's not a lot of athletes won't have the opportunity to travel like that, to get that much exposure. And that's where a lot of the mentoring comes in. A lot of the me making sure that I really do merge that experience with those experiences with my competition experience, as well as the educational component that I've developed, so that I can really kind of give them experience they couldn't otherwise get, kind of package it in a way where they wouldn't need to go to 50 training camps to get that. They could go to 5, and get that,
Can you list all of the countries you've been to that related to through the Taekwondo experience?
I can try. Yeah. So countries you're looking at, let's start with Europe. So you got Germany, you got Belgium, Switzerland, Denmark, Sweden, France, Spain, Cyprus, Greece, Finland, Norway. That's off the top of my head. That's what I can think about. In Europe, Pan American region, you're looking at Mexico many times, Dominican Republic many times, Puerto Rico, Costa Rica, and Caribbean, you're looking at Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago. Asia, Looking at, well, Australia, I've been to, did I say Holland and Europe? Yeah, Holland. Looking at China, Macau, South Korea. I didn't mention Russia. I've been to Russia twice. I think that's most of them. Oh, Azerbaijan, I've been to as well. That's where I qualified for the Olympics. So more or less most of it, like off the top of my head.
Were there any like life lessons that you learned from not only through Taekwondo but just kind of the overall kind of like your career and like from all the travels that you've done, going to different places,
Mm.
kind of
I feel like, well, one thing I didn't mention before, which is also an important event, because I mentioned a lot of people, but right before I qualified for the Olympics, my dad passed away. He died of cancer, so that was like a week and a half before qualification, and it also came as a time when I actually missed the first qualification due to an injury. So I was training for the Olympic qualifiers, and then in Spain we're doing mountain bike riding. We're just like riding from town to town through the north of Spain, and on the last day, coming downhill, I was going really, really fast. And for some reason, because the brakes are on the different side to England and they are in Spain, I actually accidentally pressed the front brake instead of the rear brake. So I actually went over, smashed my helmet in half. I still have the helmet left. There's only half left, And then I actually my shoulder went through a couple of rocks. So basically, and we was right, like maybe 5 feet from a valley. So I was kind of lucky, but my whole clavicle was smashed. My scaphoid was smashed. So that was like a couple of weeks before qualifiers. So in the end, they had to send someone else in my place. So that was tragic already. That was like so disappointing. And also at the same time, my dad had been diagnosed with cancer a few months before, and then right before I was going, but the person that went my place didn't qualify. So we still had to try and qualify the space for the country. And so right before I went, he passed away, and I was in training camp. And then I got the call, and it was time to go training because my mom left me a voicemail, and I was sharing with my teammate Paul Green. Paul Green right now, he's a national coach of the US. I think he's the technical director now. Him and Gareth Brown are my teammates. But so I was sharing a room with Paul Green, and I was just sat there on my bed. I wasn't saying anything. And then he kind of saw, and he left before me, and he ran to the training, and he spoke to my coach and said, I think there's something wrong with Craig. I think it's his dad, because everyone knew he was sick. And so when I came in, they just told me, go home. So I just drove home, and then so I finished the camp really, really early. Because the team was still there, but I went home because I had to go see my dad, this, that, and the other. And, I was at home for a week or two, and then we had to organize a funeral. So in Jamaica, we have this thing called 9 nights where you actually are not allowed to bury the body. You're not allowed to bury them for 9 nights. You have to spend 9 nights where everyone comes around your house, you have food, you have drink, and you just hang out, you just remember that person. So I had to bury him a day or two earlier just so that I could go to the competition. One or two of my aunties were upset with that because it goes against tradition and culture. But in the end, I knew my dad would want me to do that, so we did that, and I went to the qualifiers and we qualified, and we weren't expected to. I felt like it was me and one of my friends, Sarah Bainbridge. We were kind of not expected to, where I feel like Sarah Stevenson and Paul Green, they were the ones that they had their money on. But in the end, we all qualified. And that was that was in 2004. And I don't think Great Britain repeated that until I think it might have been 2016. I don't think they were able to repeat that. And that's with all the support, all the money, all the team, all the coaches, all the infrastructure and staff they have, because we had a special bond that time, and that's where I take a lot of my experience from, because even though we're starting from scratch now, it's like, I know what it's like to have a very, very small team with limited resources and to qualify for the Olympic Games.
Who are you looking for when you are, let's say, building your team for your competition team?
Well, when I'm looking at the team, I'm looking at a couple of factors. some of it you can kind of tell from talking to somebody, and some of it you can tell by seeing how they respond to training. How they respond, not only physically but mentally. So obviously it helps to have athletes that are athletic, that are, like you have all those things already. But if you have someone who's athletic but is not coachable, and they don't respond well to hard training, and they don't seem to have the drive, because you get a lot of talented people that rely on their talent and they get away with, semi-good performances because it's more based on their talent and what they have already, more than what they've had to work towards getting. You sometimes their talent gets in the way, because it makes they're just so used to being able to play. It's like I always think about that analogy that was made in Good Will Hunting. Will, he talks about, he was comparing himself to, you have to be familiar with the film, but you got this guy, he's a mathematical genius. People don't understand why or how, but when he describes it, he talks about like one of those famous pianists, about how he could just play, Mozart. And he goes, when it came to math, he could just play. But even if you look at him, because he could just play with math, he wasn't the most disciplined person. And also he had a lot of trauma. But what I'm saying is, all that to say is that you get some athletes that, because they can just play with some things and they haven't had to work really, really hard, when you try and get them to work hard on different aspects of their game, whether it's their cardio, whether it's like being able to think in the ring and not go to autopilot and just start fighting, they sometimes they can get in a habit of just gravitating to what's easy and what they're used to, So a lot of time when I'm working with athletes, sometimes I got to break that. You got to break that. You got to teach them and encourage them that you can go into a situation where you know nothing, where you can't just play initially, and you can get exceptional. So I think for me, I'm definitely looking at athletes that, are teachable, coachable. When it comes to hard training, they don't give up. It doesn't matter if they're not in, Olympic fitness, they're not in like a high level of fitness straight away, because we can get there. The training will be there to get them there, but they need to have the drive and the determination and the perseverance. They got to have the 5 tenets, basically, of Taekwondo: etiquette, modesty, perseverance, self-control. Those things, they're not nonsense. It's not just old school. It's not just, those things are what carry someone through. The etiquette, with the etiquette comes a certain level of respect and humility. You can't learn from someone you don't respect. If you don't respect them, you're not gonna respect what they say. You're not gonna take it into account. So if you don't have etiquette or courtesy, then you're not gonna be coachable. You're not. If you don't have modesty, you're also not going to be coachable, because then that means you let things go to your head. You get one win, or you get one kick on somebody, and you lose balance. You lose what's the word? Instead of being more sober-minded about where you're at, you get inflated. So the modesty is really important because it keeps you grounded. The perseverance. If you can't persevere, you might as well just forget it. If you ain't gonna be able to work through things, then we're not gonna go far. So the perseverance is really, really important. And it's not just physical. Some people are used to persevering physical. Some people will run miles for days, but are you willing to persevere in the area that you need to persevere in? Maybe you got to persevere in, how your stance is, improving your stance. Okay, I know that I might give a few points away to develop this area, but let me still develop this area and not worry about the points that I'm losing. Are you willing to, persevere in being more sober-minded and focused in your training and your sparring, that you can actually, instead of gravitating to just fighting, can you actually persevere in being more strategic? Some people, they get in there, they get hit once or twice, and then it's autopilot. Forget about it. They can't keep their composure. Can you persevere in that area? It's not just perseverance. People get twisted. They think perseverance is just training and to not giving up in physical training. It's so much more than that. Self-control as well. I mean, self-control is really going to help you. Self-control when it comes to diet, self-control when it comes to cutting weight, self-control when it comes to sparring, you don't want to hurt all your you don't want to hurt all your partners, then you got no one to train with. It's funny because some of these things are, you see people that are more, what's the word? Some of these things you see people that are more novice struggle with, and then you get some of these things the people that are more advanced struggle with. Everyone has their work to do, and the last one is indomitable spirit. This is really important because, you have to make yourself unbreakable. And that's whether it's training, whether someone tries to get in your head, whether it's, the negative thoughts that come in regards to, this person's better than me, or this person, what if this person's better than me? What if this person is taller than me, especially today in Taekwondo? What if this person's got accolades to their name, okay? Or what if I'm feeling tired? What if my legs feel heavy? All these things come into your mind, and sometimes they're real. Maybe the person is more experienced than you. Maybe the person is taller than you. Maybe there's nothing you can do about that. You can't change that, but you can still work on your response to that. You can still devise a strategy on how you're going to handle that, for someone who's going to go far in Taekwondo or in sport in general, you need to have those things. If you have those things, you got a lot going for you. There's a combination of potential as well. I mean, if you're not athletic, if you don't have the ability to generate a certain level of, speed, athleticism, strength, is going to be harder. But we balance those things out. We balance out what strength and height and speed we have with, our skill, with our know-how, with our, as Jason says, pracademics, with those things.
Can you talk about how the competition team is now with you and Jason? How you guys kind of collectively can improve athletes coming from a lot of different kind of maybe backgrounds?
I think there's a reason why I wanted to bring Jason on board. I just think he brings a certain level of mentality, which I think is really, really important. I think for me, I'm always balancing, the fact that this is my school. I have my Impact Taekwondo school, and then I have an Impact Taekwondo competition team. So part of my mind is in the general program as well as in the competition team. Whereas with Jason, it's good because he's just in the competition component, and so that helps me in that sense. That helps me in that sense. So a lot of what we're doing, it's a lot of a lot of drills, but it's more than making the most exquisite, modern, fantastic drills. A lot of what we're doing is mentoring, and we're making sure we're building really complete athletes. Because when it comes to like training regimes, training methods, or when it comes to techniques that people are using, those things change. Those things change with the times. The type of athlete that has the advantage now in Taekwondo is due to circumstances changing. It's due to, the electronic scoring, the fact that, the sensor, the threshold on the head guard is so light that someone who's taller than you, they just flick your head, they get a point, And so for the shorter person, it makes it more difficult to score because you're dealing with distance, they can hit you before you can hit them, So that is something that's something that changed with the times, and that can change again if systems change, But things like distance management, things like making sure that our athletes are in the right kind of condition they need. That's why we do a lot of the track sessions. making sure that their footwork, their coordination, their ability to use the fundamental techniques is sound, and the understanding of why and when you use them is sound. Um, with that kind of a basis, it sets our athletes up to be able to be very, very adaptable, to take on a new technique and be able to apply it, to see, to be flexible and adaptable, to be able to work around the different athletes they come against. That's where the mentoring part, along with the training, comes in how we educate them and how we coach them and how we like minister to them in that way. And that's where we can really help athletes, because I feel like what I see missing a lot in some of the schools I go to, I see a lot of fantastic drills. I see athletes that are technically, they have skills, they have abilities, but the mental part of it, like, how they think, do they believe they're a champion? Do they go into a room and suck up all the oxygen? That's my question. Do they have that kind of confidence where they go in there and people just sense that they're in that room? They sense that they sense they're in that room because they have that about them, that they know they're the best, they believe they're the best, and if you're going to beat them, you're going to have to be the best. A lot of athletes don't have that. There's only a select few that have that. And I think coaching and mentoring athletes to have that kind of a mindset, that indomitable spirit mindset, it's very rare. And I think that's what me and Jason work together to bring about in our athletes.
If I was a parent with young ones or somebody who's a teenager, how what's the path that they can take to start taekwondo, and then maybe through your program, how they can get into the competition team and start competing?
Well, I mean, the thing about taekwondo is a bit funny because you kind of can't get away from doing the traditional component. You have to do the forms. You need to get your black belt, which Cookie one is a recognized certification globally. So to be able to represent your country or to compete at the international level, at the World Olympic Grand Prix level, you need to have a black belt. So you kind of need to do that at the same time as training your sport taekwondo. So with our program, our program actually helps your child to get both of those alongside each other. Now, it's a big commitment to be able to do that. It's actually a great time right now because the Olympics is just about to happen. And, it is possible to get your black belt within 3 to 4 years. And in the meantime of doing that, our program is an accelerated program. In the way in which our sport taekwondo program is an accelerated program, in which we have, generally off season, we have at least 3 2-hour sessions a week that we do. And that's outside of the traditional, which we do every week, and we do run camps from time to time where they're like full, intense, high level camps. Week camps start from like 8 or 9 in the morning till like 2 p.m. in the afternoon. We usually do them in like the breaks, whether it's February break or April break or in the summer. And those really elevate and level up our athletes. So we do a lot of those. But if you wanted to get your child involved and wanted to get them on the pathway to possibly, if not representing the US in like local competitions or in national competitions, but maybe even heading towards the Olympic game pathway, then that's the way you'd go. You join the program, we'd get you doing at least traditional once a week, and then we'd get you doing the sport taekwondo 3 times a week. And while your child's working towards their black belt, they will be actively competing. So that by the time they get that black belt and that Cookie One certificate, they're already well seasoned. And also before they even get their black belt, well, we actually have opportunities for them to train with people that are black belts already. Now that wouldn't be straight away. That'd be probably when they're getting closer to black belt. So that it wouldn't just be, okay, now you haven't fought black belts before you get there. So that's another thing about our program, in the way in which we are we are training our athletes and preparing them to be the best in the country.
How important is it for parents to also, like, how important is the parents' commitment level to their to their kids, kind of in their involvement with taekwondo,
Mm,
or just in sports in general? Like, why is it important for parents
mm.
to be actively engaged, and maybe to, push them in the right direction?
Yeah, it's very important. It's very important for many reasons. So one reason is that if you're not at least aware, now there's different levels of engagement for parents. Some parents are very, very much engaged. Some parents are not so much engaged, but they facilitate. And some parents are just maybe just want to leave it to their kids. I would say that there's at least a certain level of education that is required for parents, so that you're not doing anything detrimental to your child's performance and success. Some examples are when it comes to weight management. All right, now, a caring, loving mother and dad, are going to want to make sure the child eats and has meals every day, 3 times a day, of course. But we have to look at when it comes to weight management and cutting weight, you could be making it harder work for your child. And this is where you need to communicate with coaches a lot and understand that, like an example is a day of a weigh-in. If your child is, a little bit over, or they're trying to cut weight, or they're trying to make weight, the last thing you want to do is give them a big breakfast. As much as you think, oh, I got to make sure my son eats every day or my daughter eats every day. That's right, that's true. But they'll be okay if they miss a meal. Recently what happened is we went to a competition, and, one of our athletes had a meal. I think they ate like a good few meals the night before. I think they had a light breakfast as well. And so what happened the day of the weighing, this kid had to sweat. He had to train really, really hard. And instead of like resting and recovering the day before his match to be ready to perform his best the next day, he's now got to put extra time in to get that weight off. So all it would have taken is maybe for him to miss a meal in the morning and perhaps miss a meal in the evening, and maybe have like a light snack. It's not going to hurt him. Obviously, if he didn't eat regularly for like a sustained period of time, then it's going to have an impact. But missing a meal in the evening in place of a snack, and missing a breakfast, that's the difference between him having a really good restful day before competition so he can stay focused, then heightening his anxiety. Am I going to make the weight? This is so hard. He's already tired because he's been training hard for months now. So that's one example. There's more, there's many more, but that's one example where at least a little bit of education to the point where you're not going to be detrimental to your parent is really, really, to your son, your child, is very, very important. Also, it's different in the UK. But in the US, it's that, you kind of have to drive to get everywhere. And, there's a requirement for your child to attend training regularly if they're going to make it. It's an investment that you're putting financially. I'm sure you want to get the most out of your investment by giving them the best possible chance of having the most success. So therefore, training is very, very important. So getting them there to training is important. Making sure they have the right things. They have like a sports drink for energy, that they have their gear, the right gear with them, that they're on time, and these seem like might seem like they're, what's the word? Like, it's common sense. But sometimes we take these things for granted, in regards to being on time, attending regularly, making sure they have the right fuel. These things are important. And the willingness to travel with your kid as well. That's the thing. They're traveling with their kid. With us, we are actually happy to take kids with us. Not everyone will do that, but we're happy to if you're not able to come, but you still want them to come, and we still need them to be there for their progress. We're happy to take some of the kids with us, for competitions or for training camps, but it's really important that they show up. You know, I mean, most of the work and the planning that we've put a lot of work into is done, you know, for your kid to grow, to develop. As long as they come here with the tenets of Taekwondo, they're willing to work, they have the right attitude, they have the right commitment, they have perseverance. You know, they're gonna improve, they're gonna get better. You know, it's just they're gonna get better. You know, but that all parents need to do is make sure their kids are there and make sure they're ready. You know, and I would say that as well. There's always a chance. There's always a point when a kid wants to give up. There's always a point, you know, and I think that's an important thing to remember, um, and to know that it's part of it. But it's not the time to just say, okay, well, they don't want to do it anymore. They've decided that, okay, let's just cancel membership. That's the wrong thing. We've got to teach our kids to finish things. You know, it's like they can't. You don't want them to just drop out of a degree. You don't want them to drop out of school. You want them to finish a school. You want them to finish their bachelor degree or their master's degree. We want to get them to a habit of finishing hard things, finishing long-term things, working through things. You know, there's a lot of things that we need to do that we don't love, but we understand we have to do it because it's going to benefit us. You know, a Taekwondo black belt will benefit everybody. The training that we put them through, the mentoring, it's going to benefit every kid that comes into our door. So sometimes we need to work through with them, work through things with them when it comes to when they go through difficulty, when they go through periods where they're not feeling as confident or they're not feeling as engaged or motivated. That's all part of it. Every athlete goes through that. And so I think it's important. That's an important area where parents can really help facilitate their child, because in the long run, I mean, no one's going to regret getting a black belt. I don't think so. You know, they might have found it hard to do it, but what they're going to get from that journey is huge. And the Olympic journey, I want to say something about the Olympic journey. I've said it before. I say it to my athletes all the time. It's that the commitment that you have to put in to become an Olympian, it's even some people, when they have a guaranteed outcome or like a high percentage outcome, like maybe it's an 80% chance of them succeeding, even then people don't always put 100% in. But what we teach your child to do, or or athletes to do, is to put 100% in, even when there's like a 10 or 20% chance of you succeeding. Think about it. The chance of your child becoming an Olympic athlete or an Olympic gold medalist is very low, you know, but only those that attempt it achieve it. So now if your child develops an ability to go all in 100% at something that's only 10% or 20% of a probability of being a success, then what happens when they put 80, or what happens when they put 100% into something where they have 80% a chance of success? They're going to succeed in anything that they do. So the Olympic journey in itself, if only for the journey itself, is one that just it makes an individual out of your child. It's gonna make them into someone who stands out amongst their peers.
Can you talk about the timeline right now? How it's 2024 and Paris games are going to start.
Yeah.
And so the next games are going to be 2028.
Yeah.
How, like, if somebody really serious, and then like what their age, like what the age would be, and kind of like that, just like that.
Yeah,
timeline.
sure. So obviously, yeah. So Olympics is about to start, which is exciting. And the Taekwondo will be, I think it's the first week in August. We had to watch Taekwondo. But yeah, I mean, from now, because perfect time to start, especially if you're starting as a white belt that maybe did another sport but really want to try this route. It's a great time to start. I mean, the trajectory right now is like, so everyone's Olympic point starts from scratch now. So now's a good time to start preparing, to start working your way up to it, because you won't be able to get points for qualification until you're a black belt. The route would be through regional qualification. So that means that you'd have to win the nationals, you'd have to maybe win a couple of opens, and win the right, earn the right from your national governing body to to try and qualify for the Olympic Games. So now will be a great time because if you got your black belt, let's say in 3 years' time, you have a whole year to prepare for that. The best part of the year to prepare for that. The good thing about our program is like we coach people. We on our team, we don't just have people that are US, working towards the US team. We have people that are working towards any team. So I myself am able to coach Team Jamaica, as you know, as that's one of my nationalities, and that's who I competed for at the end of my career. So that's one. But I'm also able to coach. Me and Jason are able to coach other countries, other players that are from other nationalities as well, which is interesting. You know, so we spoke to a few possibilities or some potentials that were from Haiti. We have a kid, an athlete right now that's in our team that is Senegalese. You know, so it's not just for the US team. You can actually compete for the nation that you're actually originally from. But yeah, I'd say if you were to join our program right now, we would definitely start with just definitely getting those basics in, building your capacity, your aerobic capacity and anaerobic capacity. We'd start getting the fundamentals in, a lot of education as to what the fundamentals are, why you use them, how you use them, how do you use them in a match setting. So that would be like the first 6 months, and then you'd probably start competing within in the second 6 months. You start competing, doing competitions, regional ones where we give you a chance to apply what you've learned, as well as attending a lot of rumbles that we do with schools that we work with, where not only will they be able to compete with people at their own level, but they'll be able to observe a lot of more experienced athletes and get to watch and model and emulate and learn from how they apply it. And so we continue to progress your child. For the second year, you do more competitions. We're doing more state ones. We provide opportunities for your child to do training camps, which elevate the level even quicker, as well as exchange training camps with other clubs that we work with. In the third year, we'd be working towards your black belt at the end of that year. Your child will also be doing a lot of rumbles, sparring with black belts as well. So that kind of gets your child ready for black belts by the time they get their black belt, so that when they start sparring, they've already got experience sparring at that level. And then that last year we'll be doing like so that would be like 2027. We would have your child doing opens to try and get that experience, but also get those points and get that recognition from your national governing body as this is someone that can do it. And it doesn't. I mean, and sometimes occasionally it might take someone 2 Olympic cycles to get there. Which is fine. Your child would have to be at least 14 coming into our program to have a chance, so that they're 18 by the time the Olympics comes along. But what I'd say is that's the fast track that's the program that we do to get your child their black belt and to get them onto the national team. So the plan will be in the first 4 years to get your child their black belt and to get them to team trials, battling for the national team. Once you get to that point, even if you don't make the Olympic team that time, you are now in the perfect place to gain points for the second Olympic cycle, to gain points, to get recognition from your national governing body, and to really get known on the circuit and get experienced.
How did you overcome the initial hurdles of establishing a taekwondo school? Were there any unexpected challenges or surprises?
I would say when I started my school in England, there was a lot of hurdles and surprises. I feel like the challenge is that I feel like the actual community wasn't the most. It wasn't. If you wanted to make a business out of it, it wasn't the ideal community for that. I also feel like for me, I had an athlete mindset and not a coach's or business minded mindset. And I think when I started in England, that kind of hurt me a bit in regards to how successful and how much it could have grown. I feel like I learned a lot from building my initial Taekwondo school in London, which really helped me with the school we have now in Milton. Um, I think that a lot of people, I actually feel like in some ways that being skilled in Taekwondo maybe made it harder for me because it made me think it was going to be easy because I was good at Taekwondo. You know, I didn't have enough respect for the business side of it and what it takes to run a business. I think that was, and I'm still learning every day, but I feel like then, and getting used to the idea of rejection. When you try to make a sale and you don't get a sale, or when you're trying to build up and it takes time. I think for me, overcoming some of those things was tough when I was building my first school. Um, but I feel like I'm able to manage that a lot better now with that experience underneath my belt. But I think that for the most part, that's been the biggest challenge, I think, with the building of a school.
Every master has a unique philosophy. How would you describe yours, and how is it reflected in the teaching at Impact Taekwondo?
Well, I'd say for me, how's my philosophy reflecting in teaching is, for me, I want to build my students up to be um, confident individuals, proficient individuals that are a credit to their community. I want to build children into adults that there's nothing that they can't do that when they put their mind to it. That's what Taekwondo is. I see Taekwondo as a vehicle for. Um, it's a vehicle for positive growth and development and change. And so when I look at a kid, I don't look at them as where they are now. I look at them as where they can be. Um, and I'm very optimistic. I'll be honest with you. I'm very optimistic about what every kid can be. I've seen a lot of kids, I've seen a lot of athletes, so many athletes that a lot of the times I will see a kid and they will remind me of another athlete that I know. Even though they don't, then they might not be Olympic athletes already, but temperaments, ways of communicating, mannerisms, um, areas of potential that you see earlier on. I tend to see I always see resemblance of people that I already know that achieved great things. And so I always feel like I always look at my students, whether they're in the competition team or whether they're in the traditional program, I always look at where I believe they can be, and I'm always trying to help them to get there and use Taekwondo as a vehicle to get there. But my aim is that every kid, even if a kid is shy by nature, or I still want to I still see a possibility for them to at least develop a certain level of confidence um, in some degree. Like I was a very very shy kid, and I'm not shy anymore. I'm hard set to see a kid that was shy than what I was as a kid. you know and so I know that I've been able to make a transformation from being a very shy kid to a kid that's pretty confident. And so I know the potential is there for every kid. And my hope is to help them realize that.
Taekwondo is not just about physical, but also about mental and spiritual growth. How do you integrate these aspects into your training programs?
Well, definitely with the mental side of it, I do bring a lot of sports psychology into my coaching, especially when it comes to the mentoring, the coaching, the verbal coaching and direction component. I do bring a lot of that into it. Um, Also, as a Christian, I bring a lot of those aspects into it as well. Like when I'm coaching, you know, I usually, sometimes we'll do a prayer before a match, and to those that might not be a believer, it's just good words. It's positive words. It's words of affirmation. It's words of a desire for them to do well. You know, um, so I do bring that in. I use it as a way to talk my athletes up, like, or whilst I'm praying, I'll be things like, you're the best, like, you're number one, he can't touch you, or your footwork's too good, or your speed is too good, or your power is too good, he's not ready for you, he can't touch you. So I use that kind of a way to try and build them up. And that's one way that my coaches used to speak to me, as in getting them ready, getting them psyched up, getting them focused, to perform, to do their best, to believe in themselves. So I do use a lot of, and it goes back into a way that I would pray in general. So I do use that as a way of, like, to build the confidence of my athlete when it's time, when it's game time. How do they get themselves ready when it's game time mentally. And so definitely I do bring a lot of that into it and bridge those things. Also, we do a lot of visualization. I'm big on visualization and mental rehearsal, um, in not only preparation but in development and in training, in technique perfection and improvement. Whether it's overcoming negative thoughts, we bring a big mental rehearsal component into what we do, as well as meditation, as just general meditation as well. Outside of that, we do a lot of that, um, maybe at the end of sessions as well. So that's a huge component. It's actually probably one of the biggest components. And I feel like as they get more and more advanced, it kind of, you might have like you might have physical and mental, and I feel like as they get more advanced, the physical goes down as a bit, and then the mental goes up in regards to how you balance how much of each you have. you know
You've achieved so much in your career. Which athletes and moments stand out to you the most, and why?
Winning my first nationals, that stood out. Going to my first international open, that was probably the first one. Actually, I can even go back. I think my first day in Taekwondo with my instructors, I think meeting Richard Allen, that stood out. And I feel like going to my first international open, it was in 2000 and it was in 2000, and it was in Germany. That was my first open. That was a big experience for me. That stood out. It really showed me, wow, this is a big deal. This is a big sport, a big event. Like, there was people from all over the world in this event. I saw some exceptional athletes, with skills, and that stood out to me. I think winning my first national stood out. I didn't even know I'd be able to do that, and I did, and it was awesome. Um, Going to my first world championships, that was a big one. Um, and not just the event, obviously it was a massive event, but I remember seeing one of these guys from China, and I remember seeing him train, and he was like a heavier weight guy, like a middleweight, but he was so fast. I'd never seen someone that fast. So I was watching him, like, as he was warming up for his competition. Like, wow, this guy's fast, but he's big. How does he move that quick? So it kind of opened my mind to things, and, like, actually, it's possible to be faster than what I am. It's possible to be that good. So that was a big one for me. The first time going to a career training camp, that was an eye opener, because just the level of training, the intensity, the speed, the athleticism, just in a different culture as well. Like, being kind of like immersed in the Korean culture. What I love about Taekwondo is it always takes me to places where it's not a tourist place. It's a place where regular people are. So you get to see regular people, you get to mix with regular people. So you really get a cultural experience, rather than people going to, like, a vacation and being around the same kind of people that they are at home. The same income level, into the same things. So I think that was great. I'm going to Korea, really have a lot of respect for that culture, the respect for elders that they still have. Um, so that was big. Qualifying for the Olympics was big because it was unexpected. It was also not long after my dad passed away. So that was a powerful moment. Uh, so being at my dad's funeral was tough as well. That was right before we left. That was tough. My coaches were there crying with me as well because they knew him. So that was a rough experience, but definitely put fuel in the fire to go there and perform. You know, it's another experience. So yeah, going to the Olympics was a crazy experience. I mean, we trained so hard for it. We overtrained for it. That was, we were guinea pigs as the first full team to go for Great Britain, but we were overtrained to the point where we went there and we were burnt out. But then 2 weeks later, like I felt sharper than I've ever been because we didn't have a taper. So that was a hard lesson to learn. But it was like you had like 20 world championships all happening in the same town. That's what it felt like. Like any and everybody was there that was anything in sport. So that was awesome. It was a lot to take in for the first time, but it was awesome. Competing for Jamaica was memorable. Especially the first time going to the CAC games, winning a silver medal for Jamaica. That was very, very memorable. That was a very proud moment. My dad wasn't there to see it, but I know all the Jamaican side of my family, which is most of it, they were, they were very proud. So that was awesome to compete for Jamaica.
Can you share a story of a student whose transformation through Taekwondo deeply moved you?
I had this one kid. I'm not going to mention his name, but it was in London. I had this kid. When I was in London, I used to train. I used to teach in a lot of schools, as well as teaching my own school. And that was, I got to impact kids, but also that was a good way of getting kids to join our club. So I had this kid. Let's call him H. Um, so he was a really rough kid, always in trouble. You know, um, didn't listen to anybody really, but yet he took a bit of a respect to me, and he was training, working really really hard, and then he just changed. He was a lot more positive, a lot more well behaved at home. He was really focused. Skill wise, he got really good at Taekwondo. Um, it's The way he developed at that point was really exceptional. I was really proud of him. The challenge is that when I left England, um, it was rough for him, and he didn't really have any other role model in that sense. I tried to get him to join another club that I knew, but he was also getting into a lot of bad stuff, a lot, growing up in that area. So it it wasn't, it hasn't been the most positive end story, but the transformation he made for that period, while I was with him, was awesome. It makes me have a bit of a regret that I wasn't able to be there for him more, as he kind of still ended up for a period of time. I mean, he's doing better now, but after that, for a period of time, he still kind of went down a negative path. But it just shows me basically how important the work that you do as a mentor is for some of these kids, because I know for me, if I never had the mentors I had, I wouldn't be where I was today. Mentors really do make the difference. Positive people in your children's life really make the difference. Huge difference. And sometimes kids just can't hear it from parents. The parents you could be saying all the right things to your kid, and then when someone else says it to your kid, you're thinking, I always say it to him, or, I mean, why is it you can't listen to me? Sometimes it's just that way. Sometimes that person is just in that place, where, or they have that position that just has that level of respect that gives them the opportunity to work with your kid. And I think instead of being upset about the fact that this person has the ability to work with your kid, just embrace it. I think for me as well, I feel like it's just important to embrace that, because they'll come back round. One of the mistakes that the parent made of that child was that she used Taekwondo as a punishment. And so when I'm working with my kids that have impulse control, or if they're in school and they're not performing well, or they're not they're not following instructions, and they're very disruptive. I say to parents, if your child comes to Taekwondo and they are following instructions, they're well behaved, they're doing the right things, and they're very positive, the last thing you want to do is take them out of that environment. That's the only environment where they're doing the right thing, and they're around positive individuals, and they're behaving positively, and they're getting spoken into their life in this, that, and the other. They need more repetition of that. You don't want to take that repetition away, because then there's none of it. So don't use it as a. It's best not to use it as a reward. It's just something that they just need to keep doing. You got to play the long game with kids. You got to play the long game. Keep them in there. They're positive there. That's the one thing you don't want them to stop doing. A couple of kids, even when I've come here, even after I've started here, I've noticed that there's a couple of kids where parents did that, and it was to the detriment, to the point where the kids got a little bit worse. I'm not saying that we're gonna transform every single kid's life. I would like to believe we would, but I'm not saying that it's going to be perfect for your kid, if they stay in Taekwondo. But I'm just saying that if this is an environment where they're thriving, then don't use it as a reward. Use something else as a reward, but have them here, because if anything, you can communicate to me, okay, my kid's struggling in this area. So now I know you're giving me like ways in which I can be intentional in the way I engage your kid. Because if your kid respects Taekwondo and the instructors in that way, then use us. Use us in a way of, okay, well, this is, and don't get me wrong, there's only so much we can do. We're not going to reprimand the child because of what's done outside, but we will tailor our message to facilitate and support what's going on outside of school, what's going on at home. But don't pull them out. It's something they got to work through. It's something that we are here to work with them through. We've created a community of people. It's not just the instructors, but we've got adults and teens that are going to hold your child accountable. And it's in that community, that positive community, where your kid's got the potential to change.
Is there a particular legacy or impact you hope to leave behind, both within and beyond the Taekwondo community?
Yeah, I want us to be known for a program that really has a focus on transforming lives. More than becoming Olympic champion, more than being a fantastic competitor, more than just being a black belt. I want us to have a reputation for that. I want to develop a reputation for really helping to transform children's lives. Not just children but adults as well. And I want that to be what we do as a whole. And I do want I have an aim for our competition team to be one of the most competitive teams in the country. And the same way I look at this is the same way I look at every child. It's like, I look at the potential of what it could be, and I work towards what it could be. And I really believe we can be one of the best teams in the country. But I also believe that we really can do fantastic work with kids. We can really transform people's lives. And that is what I believe. That's what Taekwondo did for me. And that's what I want to use it as a vehicle for with everybody that we engage.